You walked into a room last week, and the conversation died for half a second. You felt it before anyone said anything. Heads turned. Eyes lifted from phones. A laugh that was halfway out of someone's mouth stopped on the way. And then everyone recovered, picked the conversation back up, pretended the pause never happened. But you felt it. You always feel it. And on the drive home that night, you asked yourself the same question you've been asking yourself for years. What is it about me that does that to people? Why does my presence change the temperature of a room before I've even said hello? I want you to stop interrogating yourself for it. Because what you have been calling a flaw is not a flaw. What you have been treating as a problem to fix is not a problem at all. The thing your presence does to a room is not your fault, and it is not something you are going to be able to dim, no matter how small you try to make yourself. You weren't built dim. You were built lit. And the people who feel unsettled by you are not reacting to anything you've done. They are reacting to the light heaven hung in your spirit before you ever drew your first breath. My name is George, and I want to walk you through 9 signs that you have been intimidating people without even knowing it. 9 markers that confirm what your spirit has already suspected. Your presence carries something most souls were not built to be comfortable around. Somewhere in the middle of this video, I'm going to share something with you that I created specifically for chosen ones who are starting to understand what they actually carry. But we'll get to that when the moment is right. First, let me settle something for you, because I know this question has lived in the back of your mind for too long. There is a difference between being intimidating and being arrogant. Arrogance announces itself. Arrogance demands attention. Arrogance walks into a room hoping to be noticed. You don't do any of those things. You walk into rooms hoping to slip in unseen. You shrink your accomplishments when people ask. You let other people take credit for ideas you originated. You keep your strongest opinions to yourself in mixed company. And still, somehow, your presence registers. Not because you're loud, because you're loaded. Heaven loaded something into you that doesn't need volume to be felt. And the people around you have spent years calibrating themselves to that signal. Some of them by gravitating toward you, most of them by gravitating away. Let me give you the 9 signs. Sign 1. People interrupt themselves around you mid-sentence, and you can never figure out why. You're in a conversation with someone, and right in the middle of what they were saying, they lose their thread. They stop. They look away. They say, "Wait, what was I saying?" Or, "I don't know why I'm telling you this." It happens with the same person more than once. It happens with strangers. It happens with family. And you can't figure out what you did. You didn't interrupt. You didn't look at them strangely. You were just listening. That's the problem. You weren't just listening. Your spirit was listening through their words. And on a level they couldn't articulate. They felt themselves being seen all the way down, and the part of them that was performing in the conversation lost its footing. Think about Nathanael in the Gospel of John. He was a stranger to Jesus. He had never met him. And the moment Jesus looked at him and said, "Behold, an Israelite indeed in whom is no guile," Nathanael was stopped in his tracks. He didn't continue the conversation he was prepared to have. He went straight to, "How knowest thou me?" Because the level of being seen was higher than the level of the encounter required. That same dynamic plays out around you in smaller doses, all the time. People feel seen by you in ways they didn't ask for, and not everyone is ready for it. Sign 2. Authority figures react to you in ways that don't match your behavior. You weren't doing anything wrong. You were doing your job, filing the paperwork, answering the email, following the rules. And the manager treated you like you were challenging him. The boss looked at you like you were a threat. The team lead got defensive over a question you asked in good faith. The pastor's wife got cold the moment you started serving regularly. The senior coworker who used to be friendly went quiet the week you started, outperforming everyone else on the team. This pattern has followed you through every job you've held, every classroom you sat in growing up, every organization you've ever volunteered for. People with titles get strange around you. They overcorrect. They assert their position more than necessary. They draw lines you didn't try to cross. They remind you of the hierarchy in moments where the hierarchy wasn't even in question. That's not because you have a bad attitude. That's because authority figures who are not secure in their authority can feel an unanointed throne in the presence of an anointed soul. Saul knew it the moment David walked into the palace. Saul still wore the crown. Saul still sat on the throne. Saul still commanded the army. But the spirit on David made Saul feel uncrowned, even while the crown was on his head. And from that moment forward, Saul could not relax around him. He couldn't praise him without resenting him in the same breath. He threw a spear at the boy more than once. He sent the boy on impossible military missions, hoping the boy wouldn't come back. He tried to marry his daughter to him as a trap. The whole arc of their relationship was a king growing more and more paranoid in the presence of a shepherd who was not trying to take anything from him. The same thing has been happening around you for years. The titles on the walls have been wobbling in the presence of the seal on your spirit, and the people holding those titles know it, even when they can't admit it. Sign 3. Compliments from people sound like complaints in disguise. You always know what to say. You're so put together. You make it look easy. You don't even try, and you still come out on top. You hear these sentences from people, and the words are nice, but the delivery is sharp. There's a current under the compliment that doesn't match the smile, and you walk away wondering why a kind sentence felt like a slap. Because it was a slap. The person on the other side of that compliment was paying you the toll of admiration while internally adding it to a ledger of resentment. Joseph dealt with this from his own brothers. They saw the favor of God on his life. They couldn't unsee it. And the way they spoke to him, the backhanded remarks, the digs masked as jokes, the constant referencing of him in tones that didn't sound like love, eventually escalated to throwing him in a pit. The compliments that aren't are early warning signs. Not every one of them ends in a pit, but every one of them is information. The person delivering them is telling you, without saying it, that your existence is costing them something internally. And that's not your problem to fix. That's their work, with their God, on their time. Sign 4. You have noticed people watching you when you weren't aware you were being watched. The coworker who looks away the second you turn your head. The family member who studies you across the dinner table when she thinks you're not paying attention. The stranger in the coffee shop who keeps glancing over. The acquaintance at church who tracks you through the parking lot. It's not paranoia. You've been clocking it correctly. People watch chosen ones the way ordinary people watch lions at the zoo, out of fascination mixed with caution. They want to understand what they're seeing. They don't quite trust it. They wouldn't approach it directly. But they cannot look away. The same way the city watched John the Baptist. The crowds came out into the wilderness, not because they had been invited, not because the location was convenient, not because there was free food, but because something about him made them need to see him for themselves. They watched. They studied. Some came to repent. Some came to spy. Some came to talk themselves out of believing in him. But they came. And if you've noticed eyes on you in rooms where you thought you were invisible, you weren't invisible. You never were. You just hadn't been told yet. Sign 5. Conversations get smaller when you walk in, and smaller still when you leave. You've stood at the edge of a group and listened to the conversation deflate the moment you joined. The big laughter dropped to medium laughter. The dramatic story got shorter. The bold opinion got hedged. And then, after you walked away, the energy didn't come back. People shifted in their seats. Someone changed the subject. A short silence followed. You weren't doing anything to shut the room down. You just walked in. The presence of God in your spirit puts a lid on certain conversations, the way the presence of light puts a lid on rats in a basement. They scatter. Not because you commanded it, because they were never going to operate freely in your spectrum. Daniel had this same effect. in the courts he served. The Bible says an excellent spirit was in him, and that excellent spirit made every other political player in Babylon nervous. Plots were drawn up, schemes were built, all because his presence kept making the corruption around him visible. You're not killing the vibe, you're exposing it. And there's a difference. Let me pause here for a moment, because I can sense the weight of where the Spirit has taken this video, and I don't want you to slip past what he's doing in you tonight. What you just experienced was not content. It was a mirror, and mirrors demand a decision. If you are ready to go to the root to finally understand why you think, feel, and perceive differently from everyone around you, the secret protocol carries the 7 keys that reveal what God placed inside you before you ever drew your first breath. Full audiobook included for every moment of your day. Plus, the awakening map as a bonus. The 5 stages of spiritual awakening, mapped with clarity, showing where you are right now and what the Spirit is releasing in this season. Link pinned in the first comment. Not for much longer. And you did not make it to the end without a reason. I made that resource because nothing existed years ago that addressed what I was actually walking through. If something keeps tugging at you while I talk, follow the tug. Heaven doesn't pull on people for nothing. Let's keep going. Sign 6. Apologies arrive at your door from people who never owed you one, and explanations follow you everywhere. This one is strange the first time you notice it. People around you, including ones you barely know, find themselves explaining their choices to you without being asked, justifying their decisions, defending things you never questioned, telling you the reasons behind their behavior when you had not pressed them for any. And occasionally, completely out of nowhere, someone you haven't spoken to in years will reach out to apologize for something that happened so long ago you almost forgot it happened. That is not random. The spirit of conviction rests on chosen ones, and conviction does not need permission to operate. People in your orbit feel something around you that calls things forward. Things they buried, things they minimized, things they thought they had moved past. And out comes the apology, the explanation, the long overdue confession, sometimes through tears, sometimes through a text message at 1 in the morning. You haven't been doing anything. You've been being. And being a vessel of light in a culture of fog is enough to start surfacing what's been hidden in the people you walk past. Sign 7. Romantic attention has been weird your whole adult life. Either people fall for you hard and fast and intensely to the point that it scares both of you, or you've watched people who claim to be interested back away the moment things got real. The middle ground doesn't really exist for you. You're either in a situation where someone is way too consumed, talking about marriage 3 weeks in, calling you their twin flame, telling their friends you're the one before you've finished your second cup of coffee, or you're in a desert where the otherwise normal people who should have been compatible with you keep finding strange reasons not to commit. The decent ones get cold feet. The unstable ones get obsessed. And in between, you sit there wondering why you can't seem to find someone whose response to you is just steady, normal, healthy interest. That's not because something is wrong with you. That's because the presence of God on a chosen one makes the unprepared either obsessed or terrified. Joseph had this dynamic with Potiphar's wife. He didn't flirt with her. He didn't lead her on. He served her household with integrity, kept his eyes down, did his job, and she came after him with such intensity that when he finally fled, she fabricated a crime to send him to prison. She didn't go to her husband saying, "I tried to seduce this servant and he refused me." She went saying, "He came after me." That is what obsession looks like when it gets rejected. It doesn't slink away quietly. It builds a story that protects its own ego at the cost of the chosen one's reputation. Most chosen ones don't end up in a literal prison from a romantic encounter. But the pattern is the same people who are not built to handle your spectrum, either grab too tight or accuse you of something you didn't do when their grip slips. And the singleness heaven has kept you in for so long is not punishment, it is preservation. The Father has been protecting you from soul ties that would have dismantled the rest of your assignment. Sign 8. You have lost relationships you couldn't trace back to any specific argument. Friends went quiet. Family members iced out. Co-workers stopped, including you. And when you racked your brain trying to remember what you did, you came up empty. Because you didn't do anything. The person on the other side did the work of pulling away in private, and by the time the silence reached you, it was already a finished decision. Listen carefully, there is a kind of separation heaven authorizes that doesn't go through your inbox. People withdraw from chosen ones for reasons they can't explain to themselves, let alone to you. They tell their other friends it's complicated. They mention that something just feels different. They stop showing up, and heaven uses every one of those withdrawals to prune the vine. Jesus himself said the Father is the husbandman, and every branch that does not bear fruit is taken away, and every branch that does bear fruit is pruned, so it may bear more. Pruning hurts. Pruning doesn't feel like blessing in the moment, but pruning is the precondition for the kind of fruit heaven is preparing your life to bear. The relationships you lost in silence were not punishment, they were preparation. Sign 9. Children, the elderly, and the broken seek you out, even when you say nothing. Pay attention to who keeps finding their way to you in rooms. The child who walks across a crowded family party to sit in your lap. The elderly stranger at the grocery store who tells you their life story in the produce aisle. The homeless man who singles you out in a parking lot of 50 other people walking past. The widow at church who only opens up to you. The teenager from down the street who keeps showing up at your door for reasons she can't quite name. These are not coincidences. This is recognition. The most spiritually unguarded people in our world, the very young, the very old, and the deeply broken, see what hardened adults have trained themselves to ignore. They see the covering on you. They sense the safety. They feel the absence of judgment. And they come close because, on a level they don't have words for, they recognize that you carry something they can rest in. Jesus said, "Let the little children come unto me." Notice, he didn't have to summon them. He just made room. The children came because they could feel where they were welcome. And the same instinct is at work every time a child or an elder or a broken soul gravitates toward you in a room of 40 people who would have been more conventionally available. They're not gravitating to your personality. They're gravitating to the presence resting on you. 9 signs, 9 confirmations. And every one of them building the same case. Your presence carries something. Heaven assigned to you before you were born, and the world has been reacting to it your whole life. Whether you understood what was happening or not. You were never intimidating because you were doing anything wrong. You were intimidating because you were being something most souls were not built to be at ease around. There is no apology for that. There is no shrinking your way out of it. There is no version of you that gets to be both fully alive and universally comfortable to be around. Those 2 options are not on the menu for chosen ones. What is on the menu is acceptance. Stop trying to dim the light God lit in you. The people who can stand in it are the only people you were ever meant to share rooms with anyway. And the people who can't, they were never going to walk the rest of the road with you, no matter how much you contorted yourself to keep them comfortable. Solomon wrote it plainly. The light of the righteous rejoiceth, but the lamp of the wicked shall be put out. Your light isn't the problem. Your light is the proof. And every time a room reacts to it, you're being shown information about who you're standing next to. Jesus said something on a mountain that I want you to read again with fresh eyes. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on an hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. You have spent years trying to find a bushel big enough to hide your candle. Stop. The candle was lit by heaven. The candle was placed on the candlestick by heaven. And the people who keep telling you to dim it are not your friends. They are people who don't want to be illuminated. Walk away from the request to hide yourself. Heaven did not bring you this far so you could fit comfortably in the dim places. Before this video ends, Here is what I want you to do. In the comments below, I want you to write down the number of the sign that hit you the hardest, and one specific story of when it happened. Not a feeling, a story. The exact room, the exact person, the exact moment you realized your presence had done something you didn't intend. The compliment that felt like a slap. The friend who went silent without explanation. The child who walked across a party and chose you. The boss who treated you like a threat when you were just doing your job. Name it. Tell the story. Because something happens when a chosen one names the moments their light has registered out loud. Heaven moves on testimony, and the testimony you write tonight may be the exact thing another chosen one, reading this thread, needs to recognize themselves through. I'll be in the comments reading, and I'll be praying over every story that gets dropped in, because if you made it all the way to this exact second in this exact video, there is no version of reality where that was random. You were never too much. You were always exactly enough. And the rooms that finally welcome the full weight of who you are have already been prepared for your arrival.